All right, so this is kind of interesting. According to the Independent out of the U.S., it says that armor plates for the U.S. military vehicles produced in a Russian-owned plant never passed inspection. Falsifying results of the mandatory test was a widespread practice by the steel operator, an internal investigation found. I didn't know there was a Russian-owned steel plant in the United States. According to them, they say that employees at a Russian-owned steel plant operator in Oregon falsified inspection results on armored plating, including some for the U.S. Army vehicles as well, according to a new report. An internal investigation whose results were obtained by Bloomberg detailed how workers at the steel plant operator Evraz, North America, bypassed mandatory hardness tests and inserted fake results for about 12,800 armor plates during incidents spanning from 2017 through 2019 at a facility in Portland, Oregon. The plates were then labeled as tested and approved. Evraz launched its internal probe following the allegations of bypassed requirements in the quality control procedures. Let's see. Oshkosh Defense, which is the primary customer of the plates, according to Bloomberg, has been awarded contracts by the U.S. Army for Joint Light Tactical Vehicles, JLTVs, which is like one of the new vehicles that the Marine Corps has been using as well. I didn't realize the Army was using them too, but it looks like they are. The United Kingdom, Israel, Romania, and other countries also use the vehicles. I did not know that. Okay. Oshkosh so far has built more than 22,000 JLTVs as of 2024, and each of them are supposed to last about 20 years, according to Bloomberg. The Joint Light Tactical Vehicle has consistently demonstrated its ability to fill critical capability gaps for U.S. and international militaries, according to the Oshkosh Defense websites. See, Evraz's 2019 internal findings found that beginning in November of 2017, some employees failed to consistently use a machine that measures the hardness of the armored plates, circumventing a requirement, and then they inputted fake results manually, according to Bloomberg. Armor plate does not require 100% hardness testing, according to an internal report there. However, falsifying data was a widespread practice, according to the internal company investigations. 4 employees admitted to falsifying hardness ratings. Some even said there wasn't enough time to complete a test for each plate due to the demands to keep the process moving. One employee said in the report, quote, "That's how I was trained," end quote. Even though his supervisors denied knowing he was doing this, the report determined that it was, quote, "highly likely," end quote, that they were all aware of the practice. One manager admitted that he understood false data was sometimes recorded. Quote, "When you're thrown in the fire, you got to do what you got to do to keep the line rolling," end quote. Bro. Insane. It's not immediately clear how many of the JLTVs were equipped with untested plates, but there's been numerous organizations reaching out to the U.S. Army for more information. It's interesting that nobody's reached out to the U.S. Marine Corps, and the U.S. Army wouldn't know this either because, like, they're not working at that plant or that facility. They just receive the gear, they receive the vehicles after they've gone through the whole private vetting process and all that stuff, and they just have to assume that everything was done according to code and according to plan, because the Marine Corps... Interesting. The Marine Corps is not like testing for that, and the Army's not testing for that when they receive for it, because they're not the subject matter experts. Let's see. An Evraz official, however, identified the untested plates as part of the Joint Light Tactical Vehicle program, as well as being used on another armored vehicle produced by Oshkosh. The steel operator stopped deliveries of armored plating for the JLTV program once management was made aware of the situation. Evraz told the company that the company, or told Bloomberg that the company follows strict compliance with all industry standards, adding that its armored plates passed independent testing by a government-approved facility. The steel operator said it has not received complaints from customers about its products. The alleged problems at the facility arose 2 years after the U.S. Army awarded Oshkosh a $6.7 billion contract to procure nearly 17,000 vehicles for the Army and the Marines. It's not immediately clear if Oshkosh was aware of the falsified data or the internal report. Law enforcement is now investigating the falsified tests. FBI agents were visiting several of the steel operators' facilities, according to Fox 21 last July. Apparently, they're cooperating well with all the agency's requests. Evraz North America is a subsidiary of Evraz PLC. No evidence obtained by Bloomberg suggested that the skipped tests, false data, or Evraz's Russian ownership were related to the U.S. efforts to fight Russia in its war against Ukraine. Yeah. Well, regardless, there's procedures to make sure that these plates are tested because they're going on these joint light tactical vehicles that the military is purchasing, and U.S. military members are going to be serving inside of these vehicles. And if they're ever used in a combat situation where they're being shot at, the American people would hope that these things would be up to code and up to standard so that they would protect their, sons and their daughters from incoming enemy fire. So, I mean, this is a very complicated situation. I don't know, I don't know if there's been any follow-up on this or not, but I hope that there is, because at the end of the day, like I said, if these things end up being used in combat, you would hope that they'd be up to some sort of code or standard, because, when they start getting hit by drones or start getting shot at by small arms fire or not so small arms fire or something like that, you'd hope that they were up to code, because that's going to be the difference between life and death for the occupants of the vehicle at that time. So I still think it's odd that there's a Russian-owned steel plant in Oregon. Like when they say that, does that just mean that the person is like employees at a Russian-owned steel plant? Does that mean that it's like owned by the Russian government or a private individual that happens to have Russian descent? Because that's two very different things. Like the Russian government owning a business here in the United States is completely different from, say, a private citizen that happens to have like a Russian bloodline and emigrated here, or their family immigrated here legally without committing any crimes, and then they became a citizen of the United States. Or maybe it's a Russian citizen, but they're not necessarily a United States citizen, but it's not owned by the government. I don't know. That's not quite as clear as everything else, So I don't know. Anyway, I thought that story was kind of interesting. Let me know what you guys think about this, and if you've done any research or you know anything about the JLTVs, or any of these internal findings that were found between 2017 and 2019. Because I'd be interested to hear if anybody knows more about this situation.